full 6-month review of the GPX. Ride some little trails close to my house just to get out for a minute, do some walk-arounds, talk about the things that, the little things I've had problems with, no major issues, some things I like. Well, honestly, mostly things I like. I don't have too much bad to say about it. I bought this thing in August or September. I can't remember if it was the end of August or early September that I got it. Ordered it straight from GPX. I'm in Alabama. They ship out of Arizona or somewhere that way. I ordered it on a Monday and I put it together on a Thursday. So it shipped to me within 4 days. As far as the customer service goes, I mean, I had great experience. I called, talked with the guys there about parts and availability, because my biggest thing was if I break something, I don't want to sit and wait on parts. You know, what do they have in stock and so forth. And the guy I spoke with assured me that they had the majority of the bike in stock, down to pretty much everything except for the engine case itself, but everything around it. He also didn't hesitate to tell me that pretty much anything I needed, I could go to a local KTM dealer and purchase myself. So definitely eased my mind. So far, I'm on a couple of the Facebook groups, and everyone in there pretty well has the same experience. I've not heard anyone all out knocking the bike, nor the customer service or parts availability. There's actually one guy had a fork seal go bad, and GPX sent him the fork seals for free. So instead of buying something else or getting them locally, and I don't really know that he necessarily reached out. Those people are real active in the Facebook messaging groups. So, I mean, they do a really good job of trying to answer your questions, staying in contact with you, and of course do anything they can to help. Around here in Alabama, that is, the GPX is not that popular. I know I've seen a bunch of people out west, they ride them. It's of course Meg's Brat, which truth be told is the reason that I'm riding one. I'm a big Meg's Brat fan, so I figured if she couldn't hurt it, then there's no way that I would. And my experience has been great. It rides good, it's got plenty of torque. I don't think you could really ask for more power, and honestly, the dirt bike that you can get for the money, I mean, being that most stuff is way more in the realm of, this bike would be probably in my area $13,000 to $15,000, and this was shipped to my front door for $67.99, and I think they've actually gone down some since then, being that they come out with a new model. I'm riding a 23 300, and the lugging power of this thing is just ridiculous. Hop off here and do a little walk around. One of the gripes I have is the kickstand. I've tried the spring in many different orientations. I've tried different springs. I've flipped the clips. I've ground on it, done what I can. It's just more of a aggravating thing than anything. It's not that big of a deal, but as you can see, as soon as the weight's off the bike, the kickstand wants to come up. And of course, if you're on the other side, or if you're like me and like to slide the bike stand in from the other side, well then naturally when you dump it, if you want to leave it on the stand, then you got to walk around to the other side to do so. I did have to replace the left front fork seal which if you're watching any of the previous videos, you can hear my brakes screaming. That's due because the pads got soaked. I did buy a fork seal cleaning tool that seemed to help out a lot, and I've been keeping the seals clean. It hasn't leaked the past few times out. The guy that I spoke about earlier, it was his left front fork seal, or left fork seal as well, that went bad on his. I don't know if it's something to do with the brake rotor throwing trash onto the fork and the fork is grabbing it. When I took it apart and inspected the seals, I didn't necessarily see anything damaged. However, there was a bunch of grease and mud, which is to be expected when you ride the muddy areas that we do sometimes. Probably could have been prevented if I would have just cleaned it, used a cleaner tool and got it out of there. I went ahead and replaced them anyway. Not a bad job. Standard KTM seals. I didn't order anything special. I didn't go out of my way. Just standard 48 millimeter KTM seals. It does run rich. I've actually not touched the carburetor. It seems to do pretty well. Just the rich doesn't bother me. I ride real slow most of the times anyway. It's a bunch of small technical single track, as you guys probably already know from watching the videos. I'm rarely in the band. On the band, it does seem to run good. I think the tuning there is fine. I believe if I just play with the needle a little bit for the low to mid RPM range, I think it would do. I think I could tune it right out. The only real upgrades, I did change over to a tubeless in the rear. I went with a wider tire. The rear tire that came on the bike was good. It wasn't terrible, but this bigger tire, and with the tubeless being able to run a lot less air, it does a lot better on stuff. For instance, this hill that's in front of me where you don't have any run up, it's pretty much just going to be clutch out and have to lug it up it. The other tire would spin. I spent a lot more time in the higher RPMs and a lot more throttle to not necessarily go anywhere. That was a good upgrade. The front tire is still the stock tire that came on it. The wheels that are on the bike, I wouldn't say I've jumped it, but it has bounced off some rocks. I don't have any bends. I've not had any problems with the spokes. The clutch, as most people you'll talk about the clutch, and they say that's the biggest thing. For me, it works. It is a little soft, for lack of better explanation. The release doesn't necessarily come off as strong, I guess, as probably what you would like to see. I haven't had any issues with it. It hasn't put me in a bind. It is something that could be upgraded. However, it has a super easy pull, being obviously the springs in it are light, which probably equates to why it releases so soft. But it's almost like you're not pulling anything at all. It's probably the lightest clutch I've ever felt. So I've enjoyed it so far. I've got 159 miles on it. We typically try and ride at least once a week somewhere, whether it be out here, which is literally down the road from my house, or we go to a park. I would say our usual sessions of actual riding is anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, 1 to 4 hours, depending on what we're doing. The bike works well for me. I honestly have no complaints outside of the little things like the kickstand. It honestly has been a really good bike. It fires up, the e-start's great, cranks super fast. I ride with guys that ride Huskies, KTM. I actually came from a KTM, and it does everything that they do. I wouldn't necessarily say better, but definitely equivalent. I don't have any issues with power, any issues with keeping up with them. The suspension on it out of the box is great. If you're a person like me that doesn't do any crazy hard enduro, we don't race, I don't race, so I have tuned on the compression and the rebound a little bit. And of course you want to set your sag, all those things. I mean, that's typical of any bike, but the suspension works really well. I'm running it really soft just simply because of the way we do, or the way we ride rather. It works for me better. I don't jump the bike. I rarely bounce it off anything more than a couple feet. And I mean, it just seems to really hold up and do a good job. Let's hop back on. Let's see if we can get out of here. Go up this little trail to the hill to the right here. But as you can tell, I mean, it starts super fast. No issues there. I did change the spark plug over from a NGK number 9 to a 7. It seems to be a little more crisp on the band. That's probably due to the carb tuning mostly. I don't necessarily think there's any real merit to that, and the 7s are a little more available or easier for me to get around here as far as finding them in stock. Running as it is, and as little that I keep it in the band, I'm going through plugs like more than your average person probably would, which is fine with me. I mean, I don't mind running it the way I do, keeping it rich, keeping the top end lasting. I mean, that's all fine with me. I would prefer to do that than I had to rebuild the top end every couple months from ripping around. But all in all, I mean, I would highly recommend the bike to, honestly, to anyone that's either trying to get into it or is into it, trying to race. If you're trying to free ride and just want to ride some trails, some single track, it's great for that. I don't really have any big gripes. The fork seal was a little bit of a letdown, but obviously that's something that can happen with every bike. It's not a GPX thing. I mean, it just depends. Take care of your bikes, keep your stuff clean, and I don't think you would have an issue. We actually have a ride coming up this weekend. We're gonna go to a place over in Georgia and actually spend the whole weekend riding. So riding possibly Friday evening, for sure Saturday and Sunday. So potentially 3 days of riding in a row. And that should really put a little more test on it, but I think it'll hold up just fine. I don't think it's going to have any issues. The price point of this bike it's unbelievable. Of course, I would love to have went and bought a brand new Husky or KTM, but it's just hard. I mean, I would say for your average person to go out and spend $15,000 on a dirt bike, especially if you're like me and have a million hobbies and this is just another one of them. But again, I would highly recommend. I mean, you can ride the bike as fast, as slow as you want to. Very little clutch input most of the time. It pretty well if you just put it in first. I'm about 5'10", about 195 pounds, and you can pretty well just dump the clutch and it'll crawl up whatever hill you want it to without issue. I've not seen anything that I pointed at that it wouldn't go up, at least not because of the bike's fault, maybe because of my ability. But this hill right here is a lot more straight up than it looks on camera. That's no clutch, that's just feathering the throttle, and it will just eat up it with no issue. Let's see if I can get a little better view of just how straight that is. Of course, the camera is not going to do it justice, and it's a bit muddy here. It's rained over the past couple days. The brakes are good, and there goes the dying thing, but that again is because I'm running it super rich right now. I need to lean it out. In the summer, when the bike runs warmer, it's not so much of an issue. I have noticed in these colder days, it shuts off a lot more, but again, that's not really the bike's fault. Of course, you have to tune a bike to your area, to your altitude, and so forth, and I have not done anything but ride this bike, so I can't really complain about that. And it's not because I don't have the stuff or the ability, it's just simply because when I want to go ride, I just get on it and then I deal with it. So kind of my own fault there. Graphics and all that are on the bike are still the ones that came on it. I haven't changed any of those. I like the gray colors, so those will just stay until I rip them off, and then at that point I may I may swap it up or change them a little bit. I don't really have any plans of doing any of that right now, but I wouldn't feel scared at all to tell anybody to go get one. I mean, they're not, there's no clutch there, just a little bit of throttle blip, and it'll just crawl over whatever. I really would like to see some fuel injection. I think we probably will going forward. No issues with throttle response or being there. I did swap over to a 60-to-1 mix. I know GPX recommends a 50-to-1. However, running as rich as I do, I figure it'll be okay. I don't have any issues with overheating. Again, a lot of that's probably because of how rich I run it. The fan rarely comes on. We rode in the heat of summer when it was 90+ degrees outside, and unless you're really just keeping it real slow, the fan would hardly ever turn on. It is quiet. The fan does seem to do a good job. It is stock on the bike, as to where a lot of the bikes of this era, or I would say along the same spectrum, does not come with a fan. For instance, little Austin that rides with us, his Husky, he put an aftermarket tusk fan on his, and it does well. But I mean, to buy a bike at this price point that comes out the box with fans, flags, I mean, good suspension, electric start. It does come with the TSE300L does come with a headlight and brake light. It does not have the turn signals or mirrors. I'm sure if a person really wanted to, you could add those things. Again, for me, that's not an issue. I don't really ride it on the road. Around here, we're not required to have tags or tag stamps like I know some other places are. Some people have complained about the shifter. They say they replace it right away. I do ride with boots on. I've not had any issues shifting, standing up or sitting down. None of those problems have been for me. I know a lot of people do complain about it and say it is problems for them, but I haven't had any of those yet. I'm sure that's a preference thing, but it does work well for me. The bike is smooth. It doesn't carry a lot of the vibrations that you would think that comes with a 2-stroke, or which I know most of your stuff nowadays has a counterbalanced engine, so you don't really get a lot of that vibration anyway. I will say it's night and day coming from riding old KTMs where your hands go numb because the bike's vibrating so bad. And you can comfortably ride it all day and never have to really worry about hand fatigue. Or get one more walk around here. I did add the grab bar. I had to do a little bit of grinding. The bolts on the GPX are bigger than what the ones on the Husqvarna, which is what I ordered that for. I can't remember the year. If I do, I'll place it down in the description. But outside of the grab bar, still stock pipe. I've seen some recommendations there about drilling holes in it or changing up the packing. The sound doesn't matter to me. It is a little bit loud, especially compared to the friend of mine that rides the newer Husky. The bikes are very similar. I've not touched the power band. I don't mind it up high. The bike makes so much torque down low that that's not an issue for me. So I haven't adjusted that in any way. It is still 100% the way it was when I bought it. It's nice to have the kickstart as backup. I've yet to have to use it in the woods. Hopefully I don't have to do that. The battery in the bike is a lithium battery. It comes with, it's whatever their brand is. I'm sure it's very comparable to the Tusk that everybody swaps over to. I've had no issues with it. I have killed it, I think 3 times, because I'm bad about when I unload the bike, when I get home, move it over to clean it. I am really bad about leaving the key on and not going back and turning it off. So I've stuck the charger on it, charged it back up. I've had no issues, and when I say kill it, I mean completely dead. Sitting for, you know, 4 or 5 days at a time with the key on, and me not touch it, sometimes longer than that. It does come with a number plate or the headlight. I've honestly not rode at night. I probably won't ride at night outside of riding up and down the road around my house. I highly doubt I will ever use that in the woods. However, it is good. It is really bright. It works well. On the spark plug, I know some people in the Facebook Messenger groups, some people have asked questions about how to change the spark plug without pulling the tank off every time. What I do is go through this hole here. I take a wrench and just go up and break the spark plug loose. And you can easily stick your arm through this hole here and thread the plug out by hand, pull the plug wire off of it. It's pretty easy to do instead of pulling the whole tank down. It does come with a DID O-ring chain. I haven't pulled any links out of it. As you can see, I've got it adjusted pretty far back right now. I think on my next chain adjustment, I'm 100% gonna have to pull a link out of it, which is fine. That's, you know, no big deal. I don't think it's master linked though, so if you get one out of the box and you want to adjust the chain, just keep in mind you need to go ahead and order a master link prior to. So the bars are still the stock bars. The only thing I've done is cut them down. I cut 3/4 of an inch off each side, so 1.5 inches total. I wish I would have cut probably 1 inch off each side, which again, you could go back and do that yourself, no problem. The bars are really long from stock. They're really out there. I think they're somewhere in the realm of 33, 34 inches, which is really wide, especially when you ride single track like we do. I spend a lot of time bouncing my bars off the trees, which is how I rip the flags off of it. Running the Enduro Engineering bar clamp style bark busters. These are just for standard fatty bars, nothing special there. Not to keep this video any longer than it already is, I'm gonna wind it down. I just wanted to get out and do a little quick 6-month review. Again, overall, I love the bike. I've had no major issues with it. The fork seal was the biggest issue that I have had. Found the parts locally, no issue there. Tore it apart one night, fixed it, back together. Overall, would recommend to anyone or any of their line as far as the GPX goes. I mean, they're great bikes. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, let me know. Thank you all for watching, and maybe we'll do a 1-year review.